In 2026, Indiana is a solidly Republican state, having voted for Donald Trump by 19 points. However, in the Gilded Age, the results in Indiana would be far from certain. Indiana was the biggest swing state in the whole Union, next to only New York, if anyone. So, why was that? Why was Indiana so important in the late 1800s? Well, in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, the spoils system was the popular way of handing out federal appointments. The spoils system was a system based off of patronage. Patronage is when you hand out political appointments to those who had helped you during your campaign, not those who were more qualified for the position. Now, obviously, this was corrupt. Corruption was one of the major factors of the Gilded Age. Corruption was pretty much the only way to get into a powerful position in the United States government during this time. When corruption is so prominent, being from a swing state, or a state that will swing back and forth from Republican and Democrats, is a very important asset to your campaign. When the average voter sees a candidate from their home state, they are more likely to vote for that candidate. This is because they believe that a candidate from their state or region is more likely to understand the wants and needs of the people from that state or region compared to someone from very far away. Indiana was a famous swing state during this era. Indiana voted for the Republicans in 1868 and 1872 before swinging to the Democrats in 1876, going back to the Republicans in 1880, Democrat in 84, Republican in 88, Democrat in 92, and Republican from then on. This meant that candidates had to spend significant resources in Indiana compared to most other states. And of course, this meant that their candidates had to be reflective of that. Of the 52 presidential and vice presidential candidates on both the Republican and Democrat sides from 1868 to 1912, 34 of them were from just 3 states: New York, Ohio, and of course, Indiana. This meant that of 52 candidates, only 18 were from the remaining states. New York State Senator Roscoe Conkling was the leader of the New York corruption ring, where he would operate the spoils system. He used his influence in ways that would ensure party loyalty and reward his political allies. Roscoe Conkling's greatest ally and protege was Chester Arthur. Arthur was selected as James Garfield's vice president in 1880. Garfield was not a part of the spoils system and promised to pass civil service reform laws. However, a man named Charles Guiteau, mentally ill, thought he deserved a position in his cabinet because he campaigned for Garfield during the election. In July 1881, he was fed up and shot Garfield in the back, killing him eventually in September. Arthur became president, but instead of reversing Garfield's anti-corruption legislation, he passed the 1883 Pendleton Civil Service Act, infuriating Conkling. Conkling never forgave Arthur, viewing him as a traitor. But anyways, back to Indiana. Despite how Indiana was important to the federal campaign, New York had more electoral votes. New York was also a swing state, so parties would make sure their presidential nominee was from New York and would often settle for a Hoosier politician as vice president. Only one president during the Gilded Age was from Indiana: Benjamin Harrison, who next to James Garfield was probably the least corrupt president during this age, as it was under his presidency that the Sherman Antitrust Act was passed, in response to massive monopolistic corporations. Despite being a breath of fresh air in terms of corruption, he was not re-elected in 1892, because many people were put out of work due to the recession that occurred under his watch in 1890. And finally, after 1916, only 3 Hoosiers were ever put on a federal ticket: Wendell Willkie for president in 1940, Dan Quayle for vice president in 1988 and 1992, and Mike Pence for vice president in 2016. Stick around for next time, where I go over why Iowa is the biggest litmus test for politicians in the modern day.